And what you see down here are some hair stackers. Hair stackers are an important part of fly tying. They basically allow you to take materials like deer hair and essentially put them in by the tips and allow you can kind of stack them on the table. That just compresses all the fibers down to the bottom. You can then turn it to the side, pull it out, and you can be able to have access to the fibers or in a nice line if you stack them correctly. And that's what also brings me on to this. So that there is essentially just like a net comb. You can get net combs from pretty much anywhere, and it just allows me to brush out all the under fluff or the under fibers of the hair. So if you look at deer hair, for example, there will quite often be a lot of under fluff to it, so you brush it out, get all the rubbish from that, and actually makes very good dubbing. So again, I'll talk about dubbing later on. So you don't necessarily want to throw that material away all the time. Depends on the material, but that's what that's for, is to comb out the kind of under fluff of some of the hairs that you're going to use. You might be wondering why I've got that on the desk, and essentially, other than the obvious, I use this to add a little bit of lubrication to my bobbin holders. Now, if you start fly tying and you notice that you're getting a really loud squeaky sound, that resolves it pretty much instantly, and it just makes that a little bit smoother too. So that's why I have that on the fly tying desk. If you were wondering, it just allows me to apply a little bit of lubricant to my bobbin holder. Now, some of the less common stuff that you also might come across, these are just little blotters. So if I'm tying patterns where I need to paint on some eyes, these come in very, very handy. You can get those out of manicure sets, so you can get some nail kits and that sort of thing off Amazon. They next to nothing really, they're just a few quid, and you can get those for painting on eyes. The next thing you see down there is when you finish the fly, it allows you to catch the fly in by that little hook, and the spring then pushes it back and traps your fly in. And then you can put those onto a little drying rack, and that allows your varnished fly to sit there and dry. So very useful, and you might come across those in some kits. Maybe not, you might need to buy them individually. Less common thing still to go is some wing cutters. So if you come across things that look like this, look like a little stump with a blade on the end, allows you just to stamp a wing out of certain materials. So those are wing cutters, and they come in loads of different kind of shapes, sizes, and all that stuff. Again, another thing that's probably less common are wing burners. They come in different shapes, sizes, and all that sort of stuff. But the primary function of these is so you can grab certain materials and you can then burn out the excess material. So usually use it for organza. So when you burn organza wings, that's what you use. Not something I use all that much, I must confess, but you might come across those from time to time. But that's what they are. They're called wing burners. Again, slightly more common now is these little material clips. So when you're using these, for example, you need a way of delivering the fibers into the loop you've created, and that's what these are for. So they allow you to deliver your fibers into that, and then you can spin that loop. Now, what I'll have next to that, I've basically just got a few different sets of those, because you quite often find this quite handy and useful to trap materials into that one and then swap them over into that one, for example, and I can then trim out materials and get it to how I want it to look. So I quite often have quite a few of these kicking about. This little kind of cheese-shaped wooden block I've carved myself, and essentially all it allows me to do is put a feather into it, or whatever fibers I'm using, push the fibers down, or the kind of stem of the feather down, and I'll just push all the fibers up. You can then use that to trap it in and take it out. Again, don't worry too much about that for the time being, because I will do some separate tutorials on how to use all those. Now, you might have seen that sitting on the side. That there is a hackle guard. Now, don't worry, again, if you don't know what hackle is, I'm going to get to that at a later point. But that just allows me to keep some hackle fibers free from the hook eye when I'm tying in some certain, usually dry fly patterns and that sort of thing. So that has its uses. It's not something I use all that much. There's other ways of using different kind of bits of equipment to do the same job. But that is something that you might come across, and that's called a hackle guard. Well, that's that. I hope you found that informative. I hope that's given you a good idea as to what tools to come across, and it would certainly give you a good idea as to what tools you're going to get if you get a beginner's kit. If you're not getting a beginner's kit and you're looking at buying and piecing your own kit together, there's some in there that you will consider essential, and there's some that aren't. So you'll probably come across a lot of this throughout the course of fly tying, but some of it are certainly more essential than others. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll go on with the next video.